It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome into Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 90 today. That's right, the big 90. We are glad that you are with us, ready to enjoy clothes-free living for all the right reasons. We are always clothes-free in the studio, and if you can be clothes-free while listening, so much the better. If you're at the public library or the post office or at work, perhaps you cannot be, but if you can be, feel free to dive in and let's enjoy clothes-free living for all of the right reasons for the next hour. Well, as a reminder, we are on episode 90. 100 is not that far away. We're told we will be the show that gets to 100 the fastest in history, in the history of Naturism podcasts. That's a distinction that we do not take lightly because we come at you every Saturday with a brand new show, a full hour show. Not 17 minutes or 28 minutes or whatever, 60 minutes every single week. Now for 90 straight Saturdays. We feel pretty good about that. If you would like to contribute to the 100th show and make a 1-minute audio clip, roughly a minute, a little short, a little long is okay. Just tell us what the show has meant to you and how you enjoy the show, maybe a little about yourself. Say whatever you'd like to say, and we will try to get that on our 100th show, which is coming up in May. Well, the pool is ready to go. The hot tub is fired up. The grill is going full bore. Fruits and vegetables off to the right. Cold drinks off to the left. All of your hot drinks inside. Coffee, tea, and espresso, because one of our listeners donated an espresso machine. We have the cigar bar in the back left corner of the pool. Suntan lotion, towels for all. We are ready to go to enjoy the breeze and sunshine on our skin. We have Lisa Monroe coming up right about now, and then about halfway through the show, part 2 of my interview with the gentleman from Michigan. Hope you enjoyed part 1 last week. I don't know about you, but I hear some music that can only mean one thing. It's time for the great, the terrific, the completely clothes-free and fully smiling, our Naturism correspondent, the terrific Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the one and only, the completely clothes-free, fully smiling, our Naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
Good morning, Frank. And is that intro getting even more gregarious and booming every time I come in? Because it sounds like you're really playing that Lisa Monroe up.
Kind of hamming it up a bit, eh?
Not that I'm complaining. I kind of like the adoration, but still,
Yeah. You know what I was thinking, just as I was saying that, not so much the Lisa Monroe part, but the fully smiling part. It hit me as I was saying it. First of all, it seems like you're always smiling. I remember when I first met you, I thought, is this gal up to something at all times? And then I realized, no, you're just a happy person. But what hit me is I have very seldom seen you, for as long as we've known each other, I've seldom seen you, it's going to sound kind of weird to some people, I've seldom seen you in clothes. I've seen you without clothes, fully smiling. So the question for you is, when you have clothes on, are you smiling just as much, or how does this work for you?
Well, I don't think I changed too much between non-clothes and clothes, but it's probably not as freeing and not as relaxing. So I think that comes along with being happy, is that when you just have no worries. So, but that'll change a whole lot.
Okay,
Not to me anyway.
so you're basically smiling all the time, clothes on, clothes off.
My father once told me that he was like a chicken. He woke up in a new world every morning. And that's kind of like what I think people should be, is like you wake up in a new world that's good, full, and happy. And, you just approach it that way, that you're going to have a good day.
Yeah. I heard something recently, and I told you about this, but I haven't told the listeners yet. This guy is 82 years old. and he's just full of energy beyond belief. And people 25, 30, and 35 have been questioning him. At 82, you have more energy than I have. And they asked him how he did, and he said, well, for me, it's pretty easy. First of all, I make sure that I have something to look forward to when I get up in the morning. As soon as I wake up, boom, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And he runs businesses. He's still, very active in what he does for his career. And he said, there's never a day where I have nothing to do. I'm always looking forward to it as well. And then he said, I also never sit down. He goes, as soon as you sit down at my age, you might not get back up. So I just keep on going and going. And that leads, in his view, to a very happy life for him at age 82. Now, we are not age 82. We've said we're
No.
27. We might be somewhere in between. But that's not a bad way to
Somewhere.
look at life.
It certainly is. And I may have told this before, but my grandfather, when he was about 86 or so, someone asked him how he stayed so young because he was active. He, went places, he was involved in things. And he looked at them and just deadpan said, I don't hang around with old people.
That's exactly right.
And we thought about it for a minute, and then we realized that his friends who were contemporaries were just like him, and the rest of their friends were 20, 30 years younger. Because he said he was not going to get old. He was
Mhm.
going to go through life with as much gusto, as you say, that he possibly could.
There's a woman who lives down the street from me. She's 90 or 91, still as sharp as a tack, has a little trouble moving, a bad back or something. Semi humorous when she walks her dog, a little bit hunched over, yelling at the dog constantly, even if the dog's
No,
doing nothing wrong. She's just
poor baby.
always yelling.
Poor dog.
Yeah. Well, she recently put her house up for sale. She has a big house, 2 stories, and she lives alone. Her husband passed away years ago. Her kids are, long gone and on their own. And so I asked her where she's going to move, and she said, well, I'm going to get an apartment. I have 2 daughters, and I'm going to try to get an apartment between the 2 daughters so it's equal distance to either daughter and it just makes life easier. And she said, people have been after me, including my own daughters. You might want to try assisted living. And I won't tell you everything that she said because it involves some blue language, but she said, I am not going to hang around old people. So some people think I'm old. And at 90 or 91, if you think so, fine. But look at me. Am I full of life or what? And I said, yeah, you have more energy than anybody on the street. And so it really comes down to how you look at life. But in our cases, certainly my case, and I'm guessing yours too, even though you didn't quite admit it, I am happier when clothes free.
Oh, I certainly am happier when clothes free. There's no
Okay.
question about that.
Okay.
It's just that I don't think my personality changes that much
Okay.
from being clothed to unclothed. But happier? Oh, heck yes.
Okay. I'll buy that. That's
Good.
good enough for today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we get into the content, uh, well, first of all, the numbers are here. Maybe we'll dive into these a little more next week or the week after in terms of where we're being heard. We're heard all over the world. The numbers are huge, as that former governor of Minnesota used to say. Former wrestler, former governor. That's a heck of a career path, isn't it? Being a wrestler and then being a
It
governor.
certainly is a strange one, but then
Yeah.
politicians are strange, so who knows?
It's not a bad way to go. And if he's not getting his way politically, he'll just meet him out back and wrestle him, and then he'll get his way.
That's not a bad thing. I need to figure that out. Okay, go ahead.
But the numbers are huge, and we have a guest on every single show we have since the very beginning. But we're getting a lot of calls from people. By calls, I mean emails and direct messages. They really like our segments, and that's why as often as possible, we have extended segments here. And so it led me to thinking, I'd already been thinking about this actually, but the more people write in, maybe we'll do that one of these days, Lisa, if you're okay with it. We'll just do a whole show, the two of us, without a guest. We like our guests a lot, they add a lot to the show. So we're not going to get away from that. How does that fly with you? We won't be doing this anytime soon. We have guests lined
Mhm.
up for several weeks now, but down the road, what do you think? Giving it a shot once in a while.
I think it would be fun, and it's kind of surprising to me that people are, well, not surprising, but kind of especially people have actually asked that we do a full show, just us, and so I have no problem with it. I think we usually both talk enough that we can handle an hour.
Yes, you certainly do. Oh, you said both of us. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes, I'm sure you
Uh,
did.
yeah.
Yes, I hear all the time.
Well, each of us spent a lot of years in other careers where speaking was a big part of what we did in terms of communicating to people. So it's not as though we just woke up, in July of 2023. Hey, why don't we start a podcast? How do we speak? How do we
Yeah,
communicate? We already had that down cold, didn't we?
we certainly did because I mean that was after probably about a few years of the first part of my career. From that point on, it was all engaging with people and talking and so it was yeah, you get used to it and you just kind of learn to do it off the cuff without having to think about it.
Oh, there you go. Although we do think about it, we don't want to
Yeah,
mislead people.
well, we certainly do. I mean, we know what our topics are and what we
That's right.
and we know what each other's
Uh,
opinions are about topics,
yeah.
and then we just kind of we don't do a script. We don't, we just sit here and talk.
Yeah. There you go. We do have an outline. Speaking of which, we probably should get to it. We do have a Patreon page now. We invite everybody to join that. If you can help us out financially to cover the cost of the show, we'd appreciate that. But you can also join for free. And we're getting a lot of interaction there. Sometimes community interaction, sometimes just personal one on one. What do you think of this? I enjoyed that. And here's a suggestion for you. And so that's a good place to get us to. You can get us on Twitter, Blue Sky, now Patreon, obviously our website and email. But if you join Patreon and you give to the show, whatever you can give, whether it's 1 penny or $5 gazillion or somewhere in between, we are very appreciative of that. And Lisa, you have a couple of gentlemen names you wanted to thank this morning.
We certainly do. Russell and Mark are not two of our latest, but two of our Patreon members, and we really appreciate their help and their interest in.
Yeah, very much so. And again, we announce our Patreon peeps in the order in which they gave to the show. So if you're still waiting for your name, it's because we haven't gotten to your number yet. And we will get there. We will get everybody announced. And you can find us patreon.com. Just type in Naked Nudists and Naturists. Also, a direct link is in the show notes of every show now. Wherever you go for this show, wherever you hear us, right at the top of the show notes, that's the first thing we start with. And how about merchandise? I know it's still flying off the shelves. Any update for our listeners?
It sure is, and I really encourage everyone to go to our website, which is naked nudist and naturist.com, and check out the various items that we have. Beach towels are doing great, can cozies are doing great, coffee mugs. So a whole lot of things are being purchased now, which is really great, and I'm happy to see that people are interested in carrying our name around.
All right. And I'm of the belief that coffee tastes better in a Naked Nudist and Naturist coffee mug. There's no scientific proof of that, nor have I sought any, but so we probably can't advertise it that way. But can we just put it out there and people can try it for themselves?
I think there's a real kind of camaraderie and calmness to drinking coffee out of an in an N cup or a Naked Nudist in Nature's cup. That beautiful blue color, the little leaf on it. It's just a very pretty cup. Did that work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's true. It's a pretty cup.
Oh, yeah. Years ago in the workplace, I was the head honcho, and I had a woman in my office fairly high up. And we made a bet on something. I forgot what it was. One of those silly bets you make in an office, you're just joking around. And I said, if I win, you owe me a cup of coffee from a certain establishment in town. On your way to work one day, just pick it up, and that'll be my victory prize. And I forgot what she was going to get if she won. Well, I won. And I said, I said, I'll give you a week, but I'm looking forward to that coffee because I just know how great it's going to taste because of why I'm getting this cup of coffee. And I said, don't forget, and it was well known around there how everybody had their coffee. I said, black coffee, piping hot, ready to go. And so one day she brought it in and bought a large. And, I drank it and it was great and terrific. And I went to her office and I said, I told you I wanted black coffee. Why did you add so much sugar to it? And she said, I didn't add any sugar. It was black. And I said, oh, for some reason it tasted extra sweet this morning. I thought maybe you put sugar in it. Perhaps it was just the sweetness of the victory that I just secured a few days ago. So,
I'm I'm quite surprised you weren't wearing that coffee about
yeah.
that time. Not sure how I would have
Uh,
handled that. No, Oh, so clever.
I'm
Yeah,
sure it was
very
a
clever.
consideration, but it kind of reminds me drinking coffee out of a naked nudist and naturist
Yep.
coffee mug or
Ex
NNN coffee mug. It just tastes extra sweet, even if you don't put sugar in, right?
It certainly does.
All right. Well, we had something going on in England about a month ago or so. In fact, the article is February 16th. Life drawing class, nude models. They've been doing it for 30 years in this place. And suddenly they were told, your models have to put clothes on, or else it's a daytime class sandwiched between two children's classes. You either have to have clothes on the models, or you have to move it to the nighttime. And they can't move it to the nighttime because their participants just aren't free at night. And they've been doing it for 30 years. They keep the windows blocked, they keep the doors locked. There's never been an issue. Suddenly there's an issue. What do you know about this, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I read the same article that you did, and I know that there was a lot of hue and cry about this, even in England, because people were I think most people were probably quite shocked that this happened, especially after this class had been held for 30 years in the same location at the same time with according to the directors, not a complaint that he was aware of, and he would have been made aware of them, I'm sure. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, someone or someone's decided that this was just inappropriate because the small children might see.
Yeah.
And, it's important to protect kids. I understand that. That's not the question here. The question here is if this class had taken all of the precautions for that not to happen and apparently had never happened, and yet they are the ones who lose.
I got a kick out of basically saying, your nude modeling classes, your life, they have to put you have to put clothes on the nude models. Well, then it's not a nude drawing class anymore, is it? Duh.
No, I mean, I can't even believe that the only two alternatives was to move it to nighttime or move the location. The one about putting clothes on was just absurd.
Yeah.
It was just an idiotic response to whatever was going on. I just think it's unfair.
Yeah. Well, this one woman who's been modeling for the class for a decade said the fact that they're offering models being clothed as an option shows that the issue they were concerned about is the nudity of the models. Well, of course, people cloud things different ways. Oh, the kids this, the building that. No, they somebody, and I've been in these situations before, where it seems like there's a big public outcry. Zillions of people are really upset, and then you dig down, you find out, oh, it's just one person who has a loud voice or a lot of authority, or as you suggested before we started, maybe a huge pocketbook and gives a lot of money. Okay, if I give $1 million to this community center, you'll move the nude models out of here or get them covered up. I don't know if that happened, but I don't think it's a huge cry in the community. I think it's just a really small number of people, and that's a gut feeling. I don't have any evidence. What do you think?
No, I think I have that same gut feeling because I think it stands to reason. It's been there for 30 years.
Yeah,
It's not like it happened 2 weeks ago and they suddenly went, oh no. I mean, and they've never had an issue. So it is in this day and age, we know that it only takes one voice sometimes.
yeah,
There can't be a consensus. And that one voice sometimes wins out, whether that is not the proper way to look at it or not doesn't matter. They win.
yeah,
And so, I mean, this is, you don't know, he's moved close, not too far away from this. So hopefully, the people who are coming, if they are the pensioners that are coming to this class, hopefully they won't have any issues getting to that other location.
yeah.
So,
Well, one of the people from the community center, part of the leadership, actually said, it's a quote, there was certainly no prudishness involved. The trustees are very comfortable with nudity in the correct context. What is more correct than a nude modeling life art drawing class, for heaven's sakes?
there's nothing. I mean,
Right.
that's what that class is about, and
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with anything other than the structure of the body. It's teaching art students how to, and artists how to follow anatomy and learn how to draw the parts of the body that they can actually move that on into their other artwork. And it's also a very beautiful form of art on its own. So
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. I mean, this has been, as they said, part of Western art for eons.
Yeah.
We would have to say. And so, just to come out of the woodwork and say that its naked muses need to have clothes on is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like in a gym saying you must have clothes on when you shower. We're
Yes,
okay with nudity in the proper
yes.
setting, but come on, guys, in showering, you need to have clothes on. It's almost that dumb and stupid and ridiculous, isn't it?
It certainly is. And may I make one other comment about
Sure.
this that makes me crazy? To me, if they're concerned about children seeing what they shouldn't see, that's the parent's responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen.
Hmm.
Stay outside until those people leave,
Yeah, there you go.
or keep your child away from that doorway and, don't let them see inside if somebody happens to open the door. So I think that there's, two or three levels of things that are happening here, and it's just really sad that once again, those of us who like to be nude or who want to be nude models or who want to, appreciate the body and draw nudes lose out.
Yeah, yeah, sadly so. And a part of it, I think, goes back to well, if they're in there naked, they're probably doing a whole bunch of wild and inappropriate activities. So I don't want my kids seeing that. And some of that falls on us, and that's why we do this show is to
Hmm.
educate the community at large, the non-nudists. Hey, no, it has nothing to do with that for us. Now, some yes, but I doubt that a life art drawing nude model class in a community center is one of those wild free for alls. It's,
I doubt.
I've seen these classes before, and the students are very serious. First of all, they want to learn the craft, they want to learn art. There might community center is different than a college class. College class, you have to earn a grade and you have to pass these classes. So it's not a big party atmosphere. It's what they do, and it's absolutely normal. And as far as you know, I think it said in the article they did decide to move the classes, move to a different location. Is that right?
Yes, they did. They found another venue to hold classes in. I think it's just a couple of blocks or so away, which is fortunate again, as I said, for these people to be able to get transportation and to get there without any issues. But it's it's just once again, it's the nude community, and I don't even know if you can call an art class part of the nude community because
Yeah, right.
it's naked people, but it's for art.
Hmm.
It's not anything that should be even concerned with people, and art appreciators should understand that to begin with. So
Yeah.
it's just very concerning that once again nudity is being targeted.
Yeah, part of me wishes they would have stayed there and just fought the good fight. And if they lose, then they lose. But at least stay in there and fight. But I also understand the artistic crowd. They just
Hmm.
want to do art. They don't want to get
Hmm.
out there and have a boxing match. If they did, they would have been boxers and not artists, I guess.
Right.
Like, just let me draw, let me paint,
Yeah.
let me do my thing. And I'm sure the suggestion was made, we could just be totally relaxed as early as tomorrow if we move this class a few blocks away. So I can't blame them for doing that because
Mm,
enough nonsense, enough stress in our lives as it is, let alone when I go to a dang class. I don't want to be stressed out there, right?
exactly. And my fear is that, once someone gets the idea that they can control a group of people this way by
Mm-hmm.
complaining, then hopefully this doesn't happen to them again.
Mm-hmm. And what about that same community center? What about another class that might tick them off? I don't even know what. Adults showing up to learn how to play gin rummy, the card game. Well, I
Yeah.
find that offensive because it has the word gin in it. That
Mm.
class needs to be shut down right away. Well, and then people get hungry with
Yeah.
power and all kinds of weird things happen.
Yeah. The human psyche sometimes is not in good control, and people
Mhm.
just get out of sorts about what priorities should be and what people should be allowed to do. So one person, as we know, or many we don't know in this case, had control over an entire group of people who were
Mhm.
just doing something they enjoyed doing.
Yep. Well, I would say hats off to all the artists, but I guess it'd be clothes off to the models in that
Exactly.
class. And luckily they've survived. They moved to another place. They can continue to do what they do. But I'm guessing this fight isn't over for the community center because they'll find someone else to go after
Mhm.
someday when they get ticked off. Might not be today. Might be down the road. But it's a shame that artists and models have to be hassled for. In this case, in this particular place, they've been doing it for 30 years with no issues. It's not as though, okay, this is the 50th time we've had a complaint. No, one complaint and all heck breaks loose. Shame on those people at the community center for pulling that nonsense on the artists. And that's my opinion. I'm guessing you somewhat agree.
Absolutely, and it's my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, that those two children's classes have been there almost as long.
Yeah,
So it's not
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not like all of a sudden they brought two new classes in and then, the people freaked out because they didn't know what was between them. It was that this has been an established pattern for years. And yet,
Exactly.
what would they have done if I walked in and said, I don't want those kids' classes here, they make too much noise?
Exactly. Exactly. And then we're
I
just
would be the
fighting a
bad
fight every
guy.
day. Yeah, exactly.
I'd be the bad guy
Exactly.
in that
Yeah,
case, and they tell me to go away.
that's right. All right, we must head for the hills. We had some other things to get to today, but we got so wound up about this art class. Top free women, brawless women, free the nipple. We have a great, not article, but some words sent to us by a lady who we believe is going to be a future guest. And Lisa, if you're okay, we will tackle that issue on next week's show.
That'll sound great because I think it's important again to just
Yes.
keep bringing this up. We're going for men to be shirtless. We need to go for women to be as well.
All right. I said next week's show. Could be next week, could be the week after because we have some AANR things to do for women in nude recreation, but we will get to it soon. And with that, Lisa Monroe, go out there and have a great close free week. We'll see you next time.
You too, Frank, and I hope everyone has the same.
All right. The very terrific Lisa Monroe goes dancing on out of here, happily on her way. Comes in once a week for these segments. Does a whole lot of work behind the scenes, and we appreciate Lisa Monroe very much around here. As a reminder, we are the official podcast for the American Association for Nude Recreation. Are you a member today? If so, great. If not, go to AANR.com, follow the navigation, and you will be a member today, just like I am and just like Lisa Monroe is. Well, again, you're listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 90 today. And now let's get to part 2 of my interview with the gentleman from Michigan. We are talking to the gentleman from Michigan today. We've read his emails before on the show. He is an attorney. He said that we can tell you that. It gives you a little bit about his background and just how his mind works. It works like an attorney, whatever that means, by the way, because attorneys are individuals too. But you have a different outlook on life because you're probably thinking in terms of no matter what you do, is this legal or not? It just even subconsciously, like, well, I can't do this because it might be illegal. The average person off the street might not give it as much thought as you. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so, and
Yeah.
that's a big portion of, I think, the issues that nudists and naturists face is that it is on its face illegal. I mean, almost everywhere it is illegal, or it's heavily regulated. And so everything that I do, as a nudist, everything that I do, kind of think about the legality, and what would happen if I walked and got my mail, right now, or what would happen, I mean, going to the supermarket, or even just going into the forest or something. It's always that in the background, the legal thinking.
Yeah, yeah, which makes total sense. And when I was running organizations, I had that same mindset. Not maybe well, a little bit from the legal perspective. I'm not an attorney, but more from if somebody sees me, a board member sees me doing this at this place, how will that affect my career? And most of the times, the answer to myself would be it will adversely affect my career, so I probably shouldn't be doing that, which is a darn shame. Uh, there were some issues with that at some point where somebody knew that I had gone to a nudist resort, and they didn't make a big issue out of it. They didn't push for me to lose my position, but they could have. And
Mhm.
because I think a lot of it, tell me what you think about this, is there are people who co opt the word nudism, naturism, nudist, naked, whatever, for a cover for what they're really into, which is swinging and having wild sexual activity with as many people as possible in the open, at the beach, and so on and so forth. And so when people a lot of people hear the word nudist, he's one of those. I've had that reaction from people who now know what I like to do. I didn't realize you were one of those. You seem, not conservative, because sometimes people take that the wrong way in terms of politics, but just not the kind of guy who would be having wild sexual activity 7 nights a week. And then I have to take time to explain. That has nothing to do with anything. But is it your view as well that that's part of the struggle we have? People hear the words like, "Oh, okay, now you're way off the charts, inappropriate with the stuff that you do." What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because nudism is so easy to corrupt the words, the connotations and everything. Because if you also look at it, it's the cheapest thing you can do. It's the easiest thing to get into. All you have to do is take off your clothes, and so anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Every single person on the planet has a body, which means every single person on the planet can take off their clothes and have their body. And so if you are the kind of people that want to do the negative kind of things, at least in the eyes of, our community, there's no wall to stop them. I mean, there's you can't take a word and tell every single person exactly what the word means, and they're going to say, yep, that's what the word means, and then take it on its face. And
Right.
so you have people that want to do the swinging and the over sexual activity. They can do that because there is no bracket to hold them out.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest struggles we have, and why I always go after it when I hear it. There used to be a podcast on it. It went off the air 10 years ago, all about nudism. I don't know the name of the show, but that was the premise of the show. But they would spend 75% of the show talking about the swinging action they had in the previous weekend, or the threesome here, or the three couples all at once there. That just really hurts the cause, because as we go to make a push, we've talked a few times about the area of Tampa, Florida, Pasco County, which is known as the unofficial capital of nudism in America because they have the most nudist resorts per capita. They don't have a nude beach over there, which nobody can understand except when they go to government officials. Oh, yeah, we know what that's all about. You guys are going to have wild sex and kids are going to see it. It's like, here we go again. And we got to keep making that case. And maybe that's the answer. We just keep repeating it over and over and over again. No, that's not what this is about. And we have no interest in doing that. But it is a struggle, isn't it, to convince other people?
Yeah, because everyone has their own life and their own way that they've come into it. And so if you were told, your whole life growing up, yeah, nudists are those people that like to take their clothes off and
Yeah.
do all the things that come with taking clothes off. And then they hear, oh, I'm a nudist, decade or two later, they've already spent their whole life understanding what nudism is, but from the wrong side of nudism.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something in one of your emails, and this is a perfect question to ask you about your email. The fact that you're an attorney, you'll have a different insight. You heard on another show, there's a woman out there in Arkansas who's going through some kind of a custody battle with her ex-husband, and she's a nudist, and she was out there, again, as I like to say, 25/8, naked pictures all over the internet, and happy and free and loving every second of it. Well, the ex-husband apparently is using it against her. Like, she's totally unfit to be a mother because she's showing her naked body out there. And you mentioned the judge in the case said she was a wonderful mother before she became a nudist. Yeah, I guess that the judge actually said that. And so it got me to thinking of what would happen to the said judge and the textile community at large had they altered the term nudist for another group, such as, you were a wonderful mother before you converted to Christianity. You were a wonderful mother before you turned to Judaism or Islam, or you're a wonderful mother before, on and on and on. And I took it as, you're right. It probably wouldn't be said. Yet this judge apparently has gotten away with it so far. I haven't kept up on the case. I don't know what's going on, but how would you react to that? I'm kind of sort of putting you on the spot, maybe unfairly, and I apologize for that. But as an attorney, let's say you're in the courtroom representing this woman, and the judge says, you were a great mom till you became a nudist. What kind of reaction would you have?
So in family custody cases, and I'm not a family attorney, so I can only give kind of a basic answer to it. The court has to look at best interest factors, so the best interest of the child, and is this the best interest of the child to be around, a mother who, is naked all the time and takes the child to, nude resorts or nude beaches, or exposes the child to a lot of nudity. For me, I would say, that's not a problem. You're taking a child who, and I don't know how old her child was, but again, younger children don't notice nudity one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, you don't really, unless you're taught it at a very young age, you don't notice nudity until you get, to a certain age, be it 10, 11, 12, whatever. I would, say that, okay, that doesn't violate the best interest factors for her to be, a nudist or anything. But on the reverse of that, nudism, naturism, all of that kind of stuff is not protected like something else. If the judge
Okay.
had have said, you converted to this religion or that religion, well, religion is a protected class,
Right.
or you became homosexual or gay or something like that. That is a protected class. And so until nudism and naturism, becomes a protected class, stuff like that is going to happen where, okay, is it in the child's best interest to be around all of those naked people? They're not protected. So yeah, it's against the best interests, and
Yeah.
judges will continue to do that, and attorneys will continue to make those arguments, and ex spouses will continue to hold that kind of thing against their former spouse to get custody of the child.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad but true. Absolutely. And again, this was in Arkansas, and we've talked to people from Arkansas before. In fact, we had a guy from Arkansas in one of the earlier episodes that we did back in 2023. And he mentioned not only are there no nudist resorts in Arkansas, but it's illegal. It's actually on the books. It's illegal if anybody sees you naked ever, other than your spouse or your doctor. Now, I don't know if they how much they enforce that, but it's on the book, so it can be used. And apparently, it's being used in this case. Well, she broke the law. You go back and forth in terms of what this woman did, which is to you and to me totally normal and acceptable. And then other people say, well, there's a law in the books on in Arkansas, you can't do that. And so they're using that. So is the goal then, from hearing what you just said a moment ago, to somehow, some way, find a way to make nudism, close free living, part of the a protected class? So what do you think?
Yeah, and I think that would really help out. Unfortunately, because I think about it, frequently, I'm not sure of how to get that, because in order to get to that point, as like gay people have had to do, and as you know, I mean, even interracial couples have had to do, in the past to get these things, protected, is you have to have a law like they have in Arkansas. You have to have somebody willing to challenge the law. So you have to, be arrested for being seen naked, I guess. And then, you challenge that, and then the court, says, oh yeah, we're going to, overturn that law. And then you have to go and, all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then ultimately the legislature would probably have to, make that a protected class, write some sort of statute, or, something like that to make it a protected class. But I don't think that there's enough support for, nudity to, in the general public, to get to that point where it'll be a protected class. And that's really what all these other groups have had, is enough support. Without enough support, you're kind of a rock and a hard place as far as
Yeah.
the law goes.
Okay. Yeah. And that makes sense because we still have that stigma out there. We still have swingers saying, hey, I'm a nudist. And no parent wants to support that. Well, if you're trying to make nudists a protected class and you're having sex on the beach, I want nothing to do with it. Well, except those two things are not one and the same. But so we just continue educating people, through the American Association of Nude Recreation and other people like yourself and like myself, this show. We just keep putting the word out there, and one by one, little by little, we'll cross the finish line someday, maybe, right?
Right. Yeah. And And I think the hardest thing is, and you and Lisa have both mentioned it, before, that because you can't protest the same way that other groups can, how is it going to get to the point where you can make these changes for like gay marriage? And I use that kind of like as the closest thing to nudism, because it was so heavily, people were so against it for so long, then all of a sudden, there was that period of a lot of protesting, and then now a lot of people that, participate, but they were able to go and, have the parades and have the, the sit-ins and have all of that kind of stuff, because it's not, or to my knowledge at least, it was never per se illegal to be just gay. You can go and be gay. Now, you couldn't have the associated actions. You couldn't get married while being gay or whatever, but it wasn't it on its face illegal to be gay. And so you could go and get a bunch of gay people together and protest. Well, it is kind of on its face illegal to be nude. And so if you get a group of naked people together, it's going to get shut down really quickly. And you can't have those nudist parades and nudist, conventions and nudist, events, because you're doing something illegal and just adding a bunch of people to doing the illegal thing. And police officers don't usually like that.
That's true. And that's when people like you get involved, right? When somebody gets arrested for whatever.
Uh-huh.
We're going to call the gentleman from Michigan to represent us here. I was in New York City, right there in Manhattan, for a few weeks about 10 years ago. I was doing some teaching at Columbia University for a summer thing, and that's a long story in and of itself. But so I was right there, and I was done every day by 2 or 3. Well, then I had the rest of the time to myself till the next day when I had to be back. And so I'd wander the streets, and during the day, not only Saturday and Sunday, but Monday through Friday, as you get to the area around Broadway there, they had topless women everywhere. Now the streets are blocked off. There are no cars. It's strictly pedestrian and bikes at that point. And the whole premise of it was nude body painting. You could come up. I don't think you could paint a woman who was topless, but an artist would be, and you could watch him paint a woman, live and in person 2 feet away if you wanted to. And as an added bonus, and this is where, here we go again, for a few bucks, you could have your picture taken with that woman or another woman, more than a few bucks, by the way. Not that I asked, but I heard somebody else mention what the fee was. And they're just all over the place. All these topless women, bodies painted. And by the way, on the bottom, they had about as little as they could possibly get away with. So it was essentially naked, but not quite, but certainly tantalizing and sexual, and which was the whole purpose of that, I believe. I heard they shut that down to some degree. We wouldn't support something like that, because that's a clown show. That's just, hey, let's get all these naked people out there, let's paint them and charge money for having your picture taken. That stuff like that really doesn't help us, does it? Or what do you think?
No, I don't think so at all. Because what I see a lot of the time is nudists are either portrayed, a couple different ways, and that's kind of the, like you said, the clown show. It's the,
Yeah.
Parading naked people as a spectacle rather than promoting, the philosophy of, nudism and naturism and everything. And so that ends up hurting, I think, the community at large, because now people aren't necessarily associating it with sexual acts, and maybe they are, because like you said, it's still tantalizing and drawing the eye. It's parading people as a show, and when you start doing that, you're distancing yourself from the ideology behind it. It's entertainment versus enlightenment, in a sense.
Which obviously makes sense. And that's how I view it as well. You mentioned the World Naked Bike Ride a few minutes ago. And part of that, I don't know anybody personally. Now, there might be people out there, so we don't want emails, cards, and letters coming to the studio. I don't know anybody personally who says, you know what, doggone it, I'm ticked off about the atmosphere, fossil fuels, whatever. I'm going to get naked and ride my bike at this upcoming World Naked Bike Ride, because I think that's what the protest is,
Mhm.
the air quality, whatever it's called. But they do say, hey, I can go there and get my clothes off and walk around and ride my bike and have all kinds of time, fun. And that's one of those areas too where people tend to cross the line. I've never attended one of those, but I know people who have, and they actually told me that I probably want to stay away from it because it's not really naturism, nudism at play. It's people being sexual, being tantalizing, a lot of body paint, a lot of uh, fun and frolicking around. Have you been to one, or have you heard how these work?
I've never been to one. I've seen videos from them. A lot of nudists and naturists, I think, like going to them just because you are able to be nude and bike around a city or whatever. I don't see again, I don't see that as helping nudism or naturism. It's shock value. It's something for the community to come and take pictures and oh wow, there's a naked person, and you're all painted up and these decorative bikes and everything. And so it goes back to you know being a show versus being a nudist. I think I nudists, I don't think, care to be seen naked in the sense of the body painting draws your eye to the nudity, and nudists just want to kind of exist without clothing, of course, but just want to exist. And so when you have events like that, it's not just because you can kind of pick out who the nudists are and then who the people who want to be naked are. The nudists are the ones that don't have body painting. They're the ones that are just riding a regular bike because it's I'm not here to be, or they're not to be seen. It's this is an event that I can be, without clothing and enjoy, in a sense, the spoils of life that anyone else can do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Anyone can get on a bike and ride it around the city, but for me to live how I want to live without clothing and bike around the same city, it's not possible other than during, an event like that.
Now, having said all of what I said a moment ago, I would like to go to one. I'd like to go to a World Naked Bike Ride. I've just always been 3 or 4 hours away from the closest one wherever I've lived. I've lived in various places. I think the closest one to me would be Tampa. I don't know if Miami has one or not, but again, it it's hard to get time away from the studio. Kind of like it's hard to get away from your law practice to travel 3 hours one way, spend 5 or 6 hours on the bike ride, then
Mhm,
travel 3 hours back. Well, that's a whole day shot, and it's
mhm,
hard to find that kind of time. But one of these days, I will. I'm not opposed to it, but if there's
right,
nonsense going on, I will avoid it like the plague. If I see people doing stuff over here, I'm going to go over there. I'm not going to be with them at all. So we
right,
kind of protect ourselves in that way. And I had a discussion with a woman recently who knows that I like to be clothes free at my pool and when lying out in the sun in my backyard, where nobody can see me unless you go out of your way. So you have to, on purpose, say, hey, I think Frank is out there. I think he has his clothes off. I'll go around and look. Well, nobody does that. That would be grotesquely inappropriate. Well, this woman didn't know any of that. And as we were discussing it, and then she got into, well, what if people see you? And is that the whole purpose? I said, no, actually, I don't need to be seen. I don't even want to be seen. That has nothing to do with anything. I would be somewhat mortified, actually, to some degree, if somebody in the neighborhood or salesman or UPS guy or whatever walked around to the back of my house, which you're not really supposed to do anyway, and sees me clothes free. I'd be a little upset and mortified. No, I don't want to be seen. If I did, I'd run up and down the street, either clothes free or as little as possible. And you've never seen me do that, have you? She goes, no, because every time I've seen you, you've had clothes on. It's well, there you go, because I don't need to be seen clothes free and don't even have a desire to be seen clothes free. If I am, in the right setting, no big deal. I don't even give it a second thought because it is so natural to be that way, isn't it?
yeah. And being seen, I mean, that's exhibitionism. That's
Yeah.
those, because those are the people that, yes, they and those are also the people that kind of corrupt nudism a lot, because they're the ones that, I mean, it's talked about all the time, time and place, nudity type of thing. Well, they're the ones that push that boundary and you know streak through, their college classes. I wish that we could get to a point in, the world where, yeah, you could go grocery shopping in the nude.
Mhm.
You go to Whole Foods and, buy an avocado, but you do it without clothing. That would be great. And not because don't care about being seen naked. It's just if you can go to the grocery store and buy avocados, wearing, these barely there outfits, well, why can, somebody not go and buy the same avocado, in the nude?
Yeah.
It's not about being seen. It's, that gets into a whole different type of group of people. And that's the, again, the exhibitionists, and I don't think any true nudist actually cares to be seen naked. Like you said,
Yeah.
you'd be mortified if some random person showed up and,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm naked, you're not. This is awkward type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just how it's always struck me. Uh, but you might have put it the best way of all. I've never heard anybody say this until you wrote about it in the email and then more succinctly explained it today. Nudism, naturism, clothes free living is not a protected class. And so people, we're basically just out there and people can take shots at us all the time, arrest us, take legal action, whatever. We had a couple of listeners a few years ago, I think it's even before we started the show, but then we started the show and they wrote to tell us about this. The husband, they had their garage door open, which faces the street, and they live clothes free all the time. They're always without clothes. And he went in the garage just to throw some trash away. So he was probably in the garage a grand total of 10 seconds. Walked out, threw the trash in the bin, walked back in. A woman across the street, who he didn't see, she was inside, she called the police. It's like, well, I don't even know what to tell them at that point. It's not Arkansas, it's another state, but you probably shouldn't be strutting around your garage clothes free with the door wide open because you don't know who's going to run by or walk by. It could be a kid, could be, in this case, this woman happened to see. So we do have to protect ourselves because we're not a protected class yet, right? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a perfect way of saying it because we're not a protected class. The way that laws are written, indecent exposure laws, it's nudity in itself is not indecent exposure, but you're still going to get arrested. A police officer is still going to show up and take you to jail, and then you're going to get arraigned, and you're going to have your day in court and everything like that. And so, even though you may not get anything or just a fine or something, you're still, yeah, exposing yourself, for lack of a better term, to, the headache and the hassle. And so, until we get to that point, if we ever get to that point, yeah, you have to protect yourself and unfortunately choose the, time and place and make sure everything is, quote unquote, societally appropriate.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking to the gentleman from Michigan. We've read his emails on the show before, highly respected around here. And I will tell you, we sized you up, or at least I did initially. I read your email first, and I told Lisa and Jennifer, I said, I don't know who this guy is, but he's obviously very intelligent. Hope I'm not embarrassing you by saying that. Very intelligent guy. You can't write emails like the emails that you wrote unless you have a whole bunch of neurons firing upstairs. And this last paragraph that you wrote in a later email, I don't think this was the first one, proves my point. And yes, it's tongue in cheek for our listeners. You said, this message is to simply engage with and present some possible insight to my favorite podcast of highly intelligent individuals who I learned more and more about nudism, naturism through each listen. And we pointed that out. You became our favorite listener of all time that day when we read that on the air. But in all seriousness, we haven't discussed this, but you are obviously a very intelligent guy. And for the sake of the listeners, has nothing to do with naturism or nudism. How did that come to be? Part of that's hard to answer, but is that just always been respected in your family? Like, listen, gentlemen from Michigan, I'm your mom or your dad. You're going to go to school and you're going to work your tail off and you're going to get all A's or an occasional B or whatever. Education, learning, knowledge, always respected and pursued in your family?
Yeah, both my parents have, graduate degrees, and education has always been kind of like the thing to do. It doesn't matter if you play sports. It doesn't matter if you, have fun. Just make sure that you do, your schoolwork.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it always was for me too. That was the most important thing. I did music and I did sports. Those were important too, but if you got a bad grade on a history test or a math test, we're going to have to talk to you because we might not be doing the sports thing or the music thing until you get your acting gear. And I've told the story before how I had this one teacher. I sized her, I was seventh grade. I sized her up as a total joke / loser of a teacher. Probably a nice lady, I don't know, fairly young, freshly out of college. And she thought teaching was having us sit silently and look up the answers to 30 or 40 questions and the next day reading our answers. And I thought, well, this is a joke. She's not teaching at all. I'm not learning anything at all. And so as you got to the end of these 30 or 40 questions, the last few were very hard to find. And I finally just gave up. Well, I'll answer 35 of the 40. That's it. So the next day in class, who has the answer to number one? Well, I wasn't going to raise my hand. I thought it was a joke. And then she'd get to like 38 and she'd say, well, Frank, I haven't heard from you today. What's the answer to 38? Well, I didn't have 38 because I didn't do the last 5. And this happened with some regularity. You'd think I would have learned my lesson, but I just didn't care because she was a joke, at least in my book. Well, then parent-teacher conferences came. And my mom went. She came home and said, well, I guess we have a problem with your social studies class. Oh, boy. I didn't know what grade I had going on. I said, why? What's going on? She goes, well, you have a C as of right now. I said, a C? How's that possible? She said, well, you never speak up in class. You never volunteer answers. And apparently you never do your work. I said, well, okay. So here's what's going on. I told her the whole story. And she said, all of that is valid and we totally understand it. But to get an A in this woman's class, you have to do all 40 questions and you have to volunteer. Okay. I said, even though it's dumb and stupid, she said, yeah, even though it's dumb and stupid in your mind. And she said, not that I disagree with you, but this is how the world works. So the very next day, we get in class and she said, okay, who has the answer to number one? Well, I quickly raised my hand. She looked at me like, Frank? I said, yep, I have the answer. It's whatever. And I shot my hand up for all 40 questions. She only called me 2 or 3 times. But that's living and learning too, right? And learning the system, not just the knowledge and the brain power, but how to figure things out and get it done. Now, I could have tanked it and said, that is a dumb and stupid. I'll just take the E and move on. But that's part of it too, right? Just learning how to navigate through life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Not necessarily proud of that story, but I have had a chance to pass it on to younger people. Like, okay, I know you think it's dumb and stupid, but
you still got to do it.
Yeah, and you might have had that thought in college or law school. Like, well, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to practice this part of the law. I have no desire to, but you still had to work hard and get it done, right?
Yeah. There's, I mean, especially in undergrad, because I think, everyone, remembers undergrad and all the stupid classes that, well, I'm not going into this. Why do I need to learn,
Yeah.
this or that, or, and, take these electives that have nothing to do with, education at all. But yeah, I'll learn how to knit.
That's true. All right. Well, it's been great to have talked to you today. We've been looking forward to this for a very long time, based on your emails and our back and forth through the emails. We've been talking to the gentleman from Michigan. We've talked about him a lot before, read his emails. We don't have a website to get out. He's an attorney. We can't give you his name or his office number. So we really appreciate you coming on. And we're going to have you back on down the road if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The gentleman from Michigan. Maybe one of these days we'll actually get to meet in person if I head up there. And gentlemen from Michigan, go out there and have a great close for your day. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Frank. You as well.
Thank you. The very terrific gentleman from Michigan. He has a lot to say. Very bright guy. He's an attorney. And we will definitely have him on again down the road. And we thank the gentleman from Michigan for being on these last 2 shows. And on the next 2 shows, which will be episodes 91 and 92, we will speak to Rick from Kick-Ass Nudists in Florida. Well, you've been listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 90 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.